the energy you draw from the situation and from the others. I agree with you. That's why it's it's a leveler. And maybe, I start to think a little philosophically about this as somebody who considers himself, a humanist, and a humanist is, this is a very broad idea.
Yeah.
But a humanist, I guess, you want to see the good and experience the good in everybody. And that becomes more important than making a buck off of somebody, feeling like you got the better of a deal or this or that. Unfortunately, that's just the world we're in. But, the humanist side of me, man, so many times, sharing something that it could be a DRC wine or something like really crazy, once in a lifetime sort of wine. And, you're sharing it with people that maybe they're not even, they're the kind of people that say, like, recommend me a good red wine. They don't even know anything about anything. And there's a few sides of it, which is being able to share that unique experience, something so special, so sought after, so once in a lifetime. And just my own like natural, I love sociological experiments in my own way, just to see, but what reaction, what kind of reaction, you never know. Something could be completely, you may change somebody's, life some way. Or maybe if they ask that question of recommend a good red wine, then later you can say, well, what did you think of that Richebourg DRC 1993 that we had the other day? And they're like, that was pretty good. Or wow, I don't know. I like that exchange. I like this idea of not allowing wine to be something that is, quote unquote elitist, because it's not. And that's a bad rap that it can get.
Yes, and
it just unfortunately, those great wines, the truly what are considered monumental wines, have become so extremely out of reach, and as somebody who spent, the better part of about 20 years in the wine auction world, I mean, I remember my salad days when, like, Roumier, Bon Mar, or Amarous or whatever, at $250 or $300 a bottle seemed expensive. Now it's 10 times that, but that was actually a time where even on a not such great salary, like, you could stretch and that could be a special bottle. But now that kind of wine is so out of reach. First growth Bordeaux, the best Burgundies, out of reach,
So I'm going to make a case right now for something, and I'd be really curious as to what say you to this. So when I first started working, I bought really cheap clothing because I didn't think that, I could or should, even if I had a couple extra dollars, that I should, buy something really nice for myself. And one day I made a different decision. I'm not quite sure why, but I went and I bought this really nice lingerie, basically. Not for anybody. It wasn't because of a relationship. I just decided that I'm going to try and wear something that's unmentionable, such really nice fabric. So it's a Swiss, I remember to this day, manufacturer called Hanro. And I'm telling you, I was wearing it at work underneath my clothes, but I felt like I was walking on a cloud. It made me feel so good. I probably was better at my job because I was so happy.
It did something maybe
it did something in my head. So fast forward many years, a little bit like you, I was exposed to some really extraordinary wines, and most of them I couldn't afford in the real life, but I had, at the time, very fortunately been exposed to a fair number of some of the world's best wines. And was it a huge high? Absolutely. And not just because it was vanity brands that, things that are unicorn territory. But there's something that happened in those moments because those wines are so steeped in tradition and there's so much that went into it. Sometimes behind that bottle, there's generations of farmers and viticulturalists and winemakers. And what led up to that bottle is so special, that little piece of terroir, that specific piece of land, that thought and care. You almost feel like there's underneath, again, that iceberg analogy. Haven't come up with a better one yet, stand by. But there's all this other massive amount of effort and energy and thought and emotion and hard work. It all culminated in that bottle that got opened with this group of people, and I was lucky enough to get a glass.
Yeah.
So it's humbling without a doubt, but also there's that transference. There's some other layer that I can never quite pin down, but I know it was present. I've met it many times. I know that sometimes I had a really crappy day, and that experience transformed it into one of the better days or best days.
Yeah.
It was wine. It was that conduit that made it happen, that made the rest of us fall in line and be happy and be thrilled with where we are at that moment in time. Anyway, so what I'm saying is not all of us can wear beautiful lingerie and have Louis Vuitton bag, but there's a legitimacy to that. There's that silky fabric. There's elevated experience. It's, we're not going to sit here and deny that
it does. I totally know what you're saying.
So my challenge is, like, I know most of us can't go from $20 to $200. No. But what if we went from, let's just, whatever your comfort zone is, I don't care if it's $5, right? There's still $5 wine that's decent. Harder to find, but decent. What if we went like from $5 to, like, say 15 and pushed ourselves out of the comfort zone and just incrementally upgraded our world? What do you think would happen? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, especially if you're doing it with some sort of, it's one thing if you just don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
You're just, going to shop, well, it's $15. Or if you have the knowledge and experience that you know what that stretch means, I would absolutely, for anybody that hasn't really made that stretch, and especially, money is, unfortunately, that becomes an inhibitor. Sometimes, for very practical reasons, just you may not have the finances. I tell you, weird thing is, socially, not so much in my business, but maybe around where I live or whatever, I know people who make ridiculous amounts of money. They're very good at their profession, whatever that may be. And, to them, the idea of a $20 bottle of wine is a stretch. No judgment. But then, when you're having the conversation about, trying great wines and all this stuff, thinking, well, you have the means, if you're really talking to me about wanting to try something better or whatever, you're fortunate enough to be in a position to experience something truly special. Okay.
Yeah.
No judgment at all. You work hard, it's your money. So I agree with you. It's not necessarily so much, the price point.
Yeah.
I think it's more if you have some wine knowledge and you have some wine interest, and maybe, to put out some names here, let's say you like your Italian wines and you've heard of Tininello or Sassicaia or some of the, better Barolos or Barbarescos, but, spending $70, $80, $90, $100 on a bottle, I can understand. That's a lot of money. That's like a pair of shoes. That's clothing. That's all kinds of stuff. That is ultimately a personal judgment. But the other side of it, you're not going to know or have that experience unless you bite that bullet. And if it's not worth it to you, if it's too hard to get over that hump of a number in your head, then don't do it. Of course not. Because also there are people unfortunately hung up on the idea of the money. I don't blame them, but sadly, there's I know many wealthy people, and it's just everything has a number and a value, and the idea of, let's say, popping the cork on a nice bottle, they'll think of this, well, that's,
I got to see the label. Yeah, great.
I don't know if it's showing up well. This is, so this is Zind Humbrecht.
Oh my God. Yeah.
It's a 1997 Pinot Gris SGN Selection Grands Noble. So this is the equivalent of like a really good Sauterne. But it's different grape. It's Pinot Gris, which is kind of unusual, but this is, from Alsace, right? So they have, Pinot Gris, Gewürztraminer, Riesling, they do really well there. So this is a very unusual bottle. And I thought I would open it's a dessert wine, so it's sweeter, but it's much like opening a good,
sweet, right? It's sweet a flavor profile, but it's not sugary like.
It's not like cloying sweet at all. But it has higher residual sugar, but it has balance because it has the acid to lift and to balance the ripe fruit and the sugar level. So anyway, so I know people that, look, this is probably, I don't know, I'm not even sure how you'd value it. Let's say 200, 250, maybe if you were to go to a restaurant, $300 maybe, I don't know, maybe more.
And it's rare.
It's rare. That's the other thing. You wouldn't find it. But I know people in their mind, they would rather, to them, it's just like taking 3 $100 bills and just lighting them on fire. Then if that's how you feel, don't go for it. Don't do it. You can, if you cross a line of enjoyment because some kind of money number is stuck in your head, then don't go beyond that, because you won't get over it. And I'm just saying that because I've seen it, unfortunately.
Absolutely. And you don't open this every day, but I'm so honored that you decided to have that for our little chat as a faithful companion. I was just joking that I hardly ever drink rosé and I have a bottle of rosé. It's so weird. And here you are. This is such a special treat, isn't it?
Well, we're living in times that there's no moment but the present. So why wait?
I think this is so awesome and healthy. And you said something that I really want to focus on for a second, because I thought it was so cool and so insightful. You said, depends how much you know, and learning part of the wine. Okay, we're not talking about collegial, book knowledge. Interestingly enough, I just had a discussion with the managing editor of Wine Business Monthly, who I respect and admire, Aaron Kirschman, and we had a similar discussion, meaning what is a consumer to do in this vast, wonderful, and hugely expensive wine world? Where do you begin? And a lot of people's answer to this question in the industry is taste, taste, taste. And I don't disagree with that, but also there's a lack of practicality to that. You can't just show up at a store and buy 20 bottles. So for you to taste, there's that money side and time, and energy. So how else do you address it if you wine curious? And she gave an interesting perspective, which is cross-reference your research. Do some research, but then make sure the sources are reputable. Please don't listen to self-proclaimed influencers. Please don't. So find reputable resources and see if there's the same things that they're saying, if they're citing the same resources that they learned from. And there's a pattern. Like if everybody's saying this particular region is really good for that, well, they're probably right? I mean, odds are in their favor. And once you educate yourself on this, and you can spend money wisely, there's more validating evidence. This is a better avenue to pursue, especially if you're looking to spend some amount of dollars, part of your budget. Because wine tends to be, just a warning, once you start, it's a runaway train. You're going to keep spending money. You might as well do it wisely. You and I both know, like, it's sort of like I used to advise a little bit, people build cellars, and I used to advise about that. And, the simple question, should I get a 500 bottle cellar or a 1,000 bottle cellar? I'm like, go for 1,000. Actually, you know what? Go for 1,500. Not trying to spend your money. I'm just trying to help you, because you're going to feel it.
You're going to regret that you didn't have more capacity. If you're already asking that question, I know what you're saying. Like if you're already asking yourself that question, look, if you have the space, I know totally what you're saying, because and then guess what? They would have built that 1,500 bottle cellar and said, I should have bought a 3,000. I should have built a 3,000 bottle cellar.
Yes, they want to every time without fail.
All the time. Yes.
You're not going to turn back. You know, it's just like this Godfather thing. The moment I think I'm out, they pull me back in. The moment you think you're going to stop, you're not going to.
And Ilona, going back to what you're saying with, the practicality of it is, taste, sure. But yeah, of course. And especially, not everybody may be in such a wonderful, like geographic area that they have so much access. Like, okay, sure. If you're in like Northern California, I mean, most actually areas of California, you can actually go to wineries, you could see even how it's done. You could get something almost tactile about the art form and the process.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, but otherwise, let's say if you're, I grew up in Indiana or something, if you're middle America, you don't go to a wine shop and just buy 20 bottles to taste. But what you can do is at least, start identifying what it is you do like or don't like, and start going down those rabbit holes, and wherever it leads. And then that's always a great way to start. And you may not, and I just take it back to where I started in wine personally, which was exactly that. And it doesn't have to be, don't expect it to be an overnight process where, in 1 week you're Mr. Expert, Mrs. Expert, with all the experience, with all the knowledge or understanding. That's the fun of it. And I think you and I, as professionals who've been doing this a while, it is still fun that there will always be new discoveries, up and coming regions, new vintages,
Mm-hmm.
opportunities to taste and to try things. And so if I were giving advice to somebody just more starting out, it's also that, like, it's really kind of, if it's something you're into, it's a journey that doesn't have, a final destination.
Nope.
Nope,
absolutely not.
And in a way, you got to embrace that and that's what's fun about it. It's constant, and that's cool,
So is, and there's another bonus to it, wine travel. I've been very blessed as a journalist to visit some, off the beaten path regions, not just the obvious ones, where I discovered gems that I would not have known. You don't know what you don't know. So I would not have known they existed. And it was so rewarding. And you traveled so extensively, and you're an expert on Burgundy, which I'm so super jealous of. That has been an enigma for me. I barely touched the sides, but you really dove deep. And the thing is, even if you're not in the industry, or especially if you're not in the industry, there's so much to discover, period. It's not like you have to know wine to go travel in the wine region at all.
Not at all. But, fortunately, actually, you also, now here we are now in this world of shutdowns and lockdowns and social distancing and, travel so interrupted. And, unfortunately, the consequence is some opportunities that actually aren't so far-fetched. We'll all have to be patient, see what happens. Burgundy, unfortunately, Burgundy is a pinnacle. I got to say, if you're really not like truly in the business, Burgundy, you don't just go there. You could get appointments, you could do tasting, but that's different. But I would say, oh my gosh, so many other places. Go travel where open arms and open doors. And actually Napa has a lot of opportunities. But oh my gosh, you could go even in South America, Chile and Argentina, world-class wines that aren't expensive, high quality, and some of the most beautiful vineyard land and wineries you would ever see. Or even, so being on the East Coast, locally, even going on like on Long Island, like the North Fork, or even the Finger Lakes, and great wines. And there might be more accessibility and opportunity than one might realize. Of course, now we're all, shut in a little bit. But even if it's not necessarily a wine like, a region you like, just seeing the process. When you just see a vineyard, when you actually go somewhere where wine is being made and you see some kind of trellising, whatever time of year it is, maybe it's harvest, maybe it's the winter, but just seeing it, suddenly something becomes more real.
Yeah, absolutely. Wine tourism has become so popular, period, but especially in Italy, I know there's this concept of agriturismo, when you're staying in this somewhat rustic, very comfortable, just more rustic countryside environment. You're on a farm, basically, and you eat practically with the family and stuff like that. It's very inexpensive. The wines are delicious, and they taste so much better because they're local.
Yeah.
I mean, somebody asked us on IG something about local consumption, and we kind of, really got into this discussion about how wine is grown everywhere. There's no excuse for you guys. Wherever you're watching, I bet you there's wine next to you. I'm not saying it's going to be great wine. I'm saying there's wine.
It's not far away.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like Kevin Bacon, 7 degrees somewhere, just, or fewer, there's wine. So in the whole concept of the full immersion like you're describing, if you have an opportunity to get into the cellar, by all means, it's super fascinating. But the whole continuity that we talked about so much about from the ground and, even before that, what happened, and all the human hands touching it at every stage of the development, all the way to when it's bottled and handed to you in the grocery store, wherever you bought it. It's fascinating. I mean, it really is a journey of sorts, and you become a part of it because you're consuming it.
Yeah.
It's so bloody rewarding. I cannot say enough good things about it.
It's cool. And that's the that is a side of it. I've noticed that wine lovers who then sort of jump that line and become real wine crazies, not necessarily even professionals. It doesn't mean you want to get in the business and do this, but just even as an enjoyer and a lover, going to the source and just having that appreciation for how it's created, the craft of it, it really it amplifies the enjoyment so much. I just remember early on some of the first times. God, I'm trying to, as we're talking, I'm trying to think about the first time that maybe did a winery visit, and I don't even remember. Maybe it was literally okay, here in New York, or sorry, we're in Connecticut, but we're not far away from the Hudson Valley. I think it was just driving up to Finger Lakes, in no particular winery that maybe necessarily new, but just to actually go there, to actually see a winery. It's just so enlightening, and especially early on when you're just learning about this and you're wine passionate and, you're curious. Oh, it's so cool to see rows of vineyards and, you see fermenting tanks, and then suddenly the things that you sort of maybe read about or didn't even know about, you see it then as, this final product that emerges, this, this juice, fermented grape juice in a glass. You have so much more understanding and appreciation for what it took for it to get there,
And it's so accessible, like we talked about. I bet you everybody's within the striking distance of some type of wine country, wine region. And I have never heard anybody say, you know what, I took a trip to the wine country and I really wish I went somewhere else. Everybody's like, oh my God, I'm coming back.
Yeah.
It's always a positive experience.
Well, I think actually that now, so in America, I think all 50 states have some kind of winery of some kind.
I bet you're right. I bet you even in the frozen sections of the country.
There's Alaska, but seriously, I maybe I'm wrong, but I thought I read this somewhere that in one way or another, all 50 states have some winery presence, and it literally may be just one winery doing something. But so yeah, it means that at not too far, relatively speaking, you don't have to go fly to Bordeaux or Piedmont or something.
Yeah, I mean, you certainly can, but and it's great. But if you don't have, the means or the desire to necessarily travel internationally, and the thing of it is, there's a feel-good factor built in. You're supporting local. Whatever you buy, whatever products you buy, whether it's agricultural products that's food-related or wine-related, it's the same thing. It's a local business that's probably not like swimming in cash, so they can always use the business.
Yeah.
And they would be so appreciative of you, and you'll have a great conversation. Again, I mean, most people are just deliriously happy as a result of this kind of adventures. So you will be smiling, they'll be smiling, you will help a local business. It's just like, what's not to love?
You might discover something really amazing for you. You might make some wonderful relationships and friendships, and that's one part of the wine. Being in the wine, being a wine lover. Forget even not you and I as professionals, but the relationships, and have fun with it.
Absolutely. No, I mean, and going back to social, like, I know how much you love answering questions. Like, when somebody's asking you a question about other stuff, the reality stuff's like, yeah, whatever. But when it comes to wine, you are so excited when somebody is reaching out and wanting to connect on that basis. And again, you guys, hopefully you've been watching, listening, and such like that, and you understand what Michael's career and relevance to that space is. It is extraordinary. You're one of the few people in the world that's been exposed to so much for 20 years. It's so intense. And yet you're incredibly approachable. There's not even an ounce of airs about you. You're so willing to share your knowledge and your perspective. And, it's so refreshing. I mean, I've talked to enough people that are very proud of their knowledge, and I let you know that. And that's not as fun. But talking to you is just a blast.
Maybe it's this. And I truly love it. I really love it, because it's your opportunity it's an opportunity to sort of engage and interact with somebody positively. And I mean, if they're approaching you with wine questions at whatever level. And I probably much more enjoy when it is those who really truly love wine. Maybe they don't know, don't have a lot of experience, knowledge, wine education. The thing is, to me, it feels like it could have been 2 weeks ago that's where I was, and I was very lucky to have wonderful mentors, wonderful contacts and relationships. I was very lucky to be in kind of a right place at the right time. And some of the wonderful people I've gotten to know along the way, just that kind of enthusiasm and energy and excitement. And then, of course, the knowledge that was shared was just wonderful. If I can do that, that's great. It feels like yesterday I was in the same shoes, somebody excited about it. Didn't even know what questions you should ask, you just.
Yeah. And it's so great that now it's so much more accessible. I mean, in the past, there was a few gatekeepers, right, that really got access. Yeah. But now with the digital media and such like that proliferation, that's the bright side.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Because now somebody can reach out to you and say, hey, what should I drink? And you'll say, hey, let's talk about it. I mean, I can't imagine having that kind of access when I was learning about what I was doing, but I was beginning to learn.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the beautiful side. We kind of started a discussion on social, and it is what you make of it. Just like anything else, by the way. It's a space that's available, that's accessible, and you can choose to follow people like Juliana and people like Michael and really enrich your world, or you could do other things and go on the other side of the spectrum and, be vain or negative or, talk to posers. It's that research. Just like tasting wine, you need to understand what is it that you're going after. Please take some time and give yourself the homework, take the time and trouble to get to know the space and what it represents, and spend your time wisely, because it's so rewarding when you do. When you ferret out those gems and you connect, there's nothing better. And it's worth the work, I promise you. People will reveal themselves. You and I talk about audiences a lot because we care about you guys so much. We care about this because we spend a lot of time, and we enjoy every moment of it, but we want it to matter in some way to ourselves, to each other, because we're the type of people that hold ourselves highly accountable. So we come from that point of view. So we really, we value your time. We appreciate it. And we want you guys to get value back. And the type of audiences that we really aspire to connect with is not necessarily people that drink, amazing wines and travel to beautiful places. It's the people that actually are seeking similar things, that human interaction, bring out the best in each other.
Yeah.
And I don't care if it's 3 people, 3,000, the more the merrier, but fundamentally, you and I look at it as quality, not quantity. And we sure hope you guys come to our round table. It's always round. It's always a circle. And come play with us. Yeah.
Ask questions. Discover your own path, maybe. But yeah, I think what you say are wonderfully, I guess we'd say, kind of closing remarks for this sort of discussion, which is, you don't feel any intimidation, don't feel any sense of being overwhelmed. And if you're at that, if you're simply at the point where the only question to ask is what kind of red wine you recommend, that's fine. You never know where that might lead.
That's right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I, as usual, loved every single minute. And we'll be back. We have much more to talk about. And hopefully we'll hear from you guys, and you can tell us what you want to hear about the most and what resonated with you the most. We're all ears.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.